Hi, this is Michael Buffer, and welcome to the BoxHard Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Mikey Garcia.
It's the monster from the swamps, Regis Rougarou Prograis.
Hey, what's up? This is King Carlos Molina, former IBF World Champ.
This is Michael, the Bounty Hunter, 2012 Olympian and your people's champ.
This is Charlie Edwards, flyweight champion of the world.
This is Fast Eddie Chambers, and you're listening to the BoxHard Podcast with my main man, Joey Coastman.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 215 of the BoxHard Podcast. I'm your host, Joey Coastman. I'm joined, as ever, on most weeks, by the infamous, the elusive, Mr. Ayaz Sumra. Ayaz, how's it going?
I'm very good, Joey. Yourself?
Very good, my friend. Very good. Let's dive into the review part. No surprises there. The same place as always. We're going to start, though, in a place we don't always start in, at the Caesars Palace in Dubai. A couple fights to mention over here. Firstly, friend of the show, Jack Catterall, picked up another win. Still waiting to be called, really, I suppose, as the mandatory for the WBO Super Lightweight World title. Anyway, another win for him now, 25-0. A shutout on one card, 9 rounds to 1 on the other card, and I think 8 rounds to 2 or something like that on the other card. So quite wide there against Timo Schwarzkopf, over 10 rounds there unanimously. Moving down at the bill, we had Thomas Patrick Ward. He picked up an 8th round unanimous decision. A complete shutout for him against his opponent, Martin Casillas, now 20-12 with 1 draw. Thomas Patrick Ward, 29-0. I really want to see him stepped up, though. It's a bit of a waste of time at the minute, to be honest. He's still young, though. Also on that bill, Vijender Singh was able to beat Charles Adamu. It was an 8th round unanimous decision for Singh. So all the big name fighters on this bill went the distance. They got the wins very wide. And I think Singh had Adamu down. I think it was about 2 or 3 times during the fight, something like that. So a good win there for Vijender Singh. Want to see him a bit more active. He's now 12-0. Moving out now to the York Hall, Bethnal Green, London, United Kingdom. Over here, of course, the what's it called? That tournament again, the Golden Contract Tournament with MTK. So let's start with Logan Yoon, a guy that decided to go on YouTube and get all of his footage taken down so no one could see how good he was. He was a southpaw. O'Hara Davies didn't even know what stance he was on fight week. I think he found out last minute or whatever. I think someone actually gave him the lowdown. He wasn't bothered about naming them in the post-fight interview. So he knew a little bit about him, but of course, Logan Yoon really went quite far with deleting all the footage. No one knew anything about him. He was a sparring partner of Jorge Linares. He was a great amateur. I think 100 wins, 11 losses. Undefeated as a pro. I think he had 12 KOs, so a bit of a banger. And of course, notoriously, O'Hara Davies doesn't get on great with southpaws. He lost, of course, to southpaw Josh Taylor. And he lost to southpaw Jack Catterall. But Logan Yoon, in my opinion, was, not a waste of time. I think he was talented, but yeah, he wasn't really on the level of O'Hara Davies. I didn't feel like Yoon racked up loads of rounds. I felt like O'Hara Davies was pretty much in control. He looked the more comfortable in there. Obviously, he's got that power. He's got those freakishly long arms. And to be honest, at no point in the fight was I worried for O'Hara Davies. I felt like he was in command, really. So he won the fight in the end. They pulled Logan Yoon out, really, at the first sign of danger. In the 7th round, I think he took a bit of punishment, and then he went back to his corner and they pulled him out on his stool. So very disappointing there. Logan Yoon, no point in deleting all his footage off YouTube. May as well just put it all back up now. I think he should put it all back up, actually, because if the only piece of footage on him is that fight there, then everyone's going to just, I don't know, not be interested. They're going to think they're going to beat him easy, because that was quite a poor display from Logan Yoon. O'Hara Davies gets the win, 20-2 now. Logan Yoon served up his first loss. He loses his 16-1. On the undercard, Mohamed Mamoun picked up a win. It was a TKO for him over 5 rounds against Darren Surtees, now 12-1. Again, he loses his obviously Mohamed Mamoun, former European champion, a guy that was able to beat Sam Eggington, now 22-3. I think he's probably the favourite of the tournament. I want to see him and O'Hara Davies. I think those two are probably the standouts really out of the tournament candidates. Obviously, O'Hara Davies kicked off with Darren Surtees. I wanted to see that fight. O'Hara Davies kicked off with Tyrone McKenna. I wanted to see that fight. Now Surtees is out of the tournament, so the next round, hopefully, O'Hara gets either Tyrone McKenna or Mohamed Mamoun, because those are the two fights I'd like to see for him. There's only 3 guys he can box in it, because I think 4 people go through, don't they? So hopefully he gets one of those 2. Hopefully we don't get stitched up again like we did in the first round, where all the fights happened that no one really fancied. It is just luck of the draw, though. Also, Kieran Geffen, he obviously went into the bout with a record of 9-2 with 1 draw. They pulled in Jeff Afori, who actually boxed, I think it was 6 or 7 days prior to this one, and he got an upset win back then on that weekend. And he came over for this fight here with, I think it was 2 or 3 days notice, turned up. Obviously he was on weight because he boxed the week before. He jumped in last minute and he was able to, I'm not quite sure how it works, because it's listed as a split draw over 10 rounds, which it was when you totaled up the 3 judges' scorecards. But they introduced the 4th judge, and then Afori ended up getting the win. So he's pulled off 2 brilliant wins, 2 upset wins within 7 days. And, this one was a last-minute replacement job. So unbelievable stuff for Jeff Afori. Great for him. He's now 11-1, I believe, because it's strange. I'm looking on the internet. It's saying it's a draw, but they've brought in the 4th judge to make him go through. So he won the fight, but it's still listed as a draw. So I'm not quite sure how that works really there. That's very strange. It's almost like the 4th judge was an unofficial judge. That's the only thing I can think of, but I don't think he was. So that's weird. I think it was the referee who had to give his scorecard in. Very strange. Very, very strange. But anyway, he proceeds to the next round. That's all that really matters there. Also on that bill, Tyrone McKenna was able to beat Mikey Saki very wide, actually. I was gutted for Mikey Saki. Obviously, our long-term listeners will know I got a bit of a soft spot for Saki since his fight against C.R. Ozgal. But yeah, he was able to get beaten very, very wide. 10 rounds to 0 on 2 cards and 9-1 on the other card. I felt it was a bit more competitive than the scorecard showed, but still the right man won, Tyrone McKenna. Now 20-1 with a draw. Mikey Saki 8-3. Moving out now to the Echo Arena, Liverpool. I'm going to just start with the main event. Ayaz, you can take over here. Callum Smith remains undefeated, 27-0 now. A defence, of course, of his WBA Super Middleweight title, and also the WBC Diamond belt. He's now the Ring Magazine champion as well. I think he may have already had that belt. John Ryder served up another harsh loss on the cards, now 28-5. Both boxers cut on their right eye during the fight. Unbelievable fight, though. Talk to me.
Yes, it was an unbelievable fight. John Ryder, obviously, he's one improved. That's improved since his Nick Blackwell's defeat. Right, he's improved and improved. He went to Vegas in his fight before the Callum Smith guy, knocked the fight right in the Golden Boy on a Golden Boy card. But oh god, before the start of this fight, Callum Smith was a huge favourite, and everyone wrote of John Ryder. Within the start of the first round, I was analysing this from the first to the 12th round. First round, it was a Callum Smith round. Second round, I gave it to John Ryder. Third round, I gave it to Callum Smith. Fourth round is when the heads are clashed, and that's when Callum Smith got cut eye. Obviously, in the 5th round, I gave it to Callum Smith. But from the 6th round, I personally had John Ryder winning the rounds. 6th round, John Ryder was pushing him right to the back of the edge. John Ryder had him on the ropes, hitting him, body shotting him. 7th round, I had Callum Smith on that round. 8, I had John Ryder. 9, I had John Ryder hitting him. 10, I had John Ryder. John Ryder on 10th round, yeah, John Ryder was actually going for it. The 11th fight, I had John Ryder, obviously, because when I saw the fight, John Ryder was actually going for more than Callum Smith. Callum Smith did land some good punches, but he didn't do much on John Ryder. He didn't drop him at all. And on the 12th round was a very the 11th round. Once we go back to the 11th round. I mean, the 11th round, John Ryder was actually pushing him and hitting him. And obviously, it had a bit of effect. You can see that Callum Smith was bleeding more and more slowly. Obviously, John Ryder had a bit of blood coming from his nose. But on the 12th round, I had John Ryder. John Ryder used his jab a lot, hit him with some good body shots, obviously had him on the ropes. But the one thing, once the fight, obviously, we saw that Callum Smith won the fight. One of the judges, Terry O'Connor, had 117, 111. Now, what was that? I didn't have that. I had John Ryder winning the fight by minimum 3 rounds. They're all saying Callum Smith, Callum Smith in a big fight at Anfield. Personally, I don't think he's ready for a big fight yet. He didn't do much on John Ryder. This was meant to be Callum Smith's knockout. This was a fight which was streamed on DAZN and was being shown in America. He should have made a huge statement, but he didn't. He didn't do nothing. John Ryder, for me, made that huge statement, and they're saying they look at a fight of either Benavidez, Billy Joe, Chris Eubank Jr., Canelo, Golovkin. Personally, if I want to see Callum Smith fight in another big fight, I'd rather see him fight John Ryder again.
So you've got your scorecard there, Ayaz. Before I break it down from my angle, obviously we know scoring is subjective. Let's just compare scorecards, though. So the first round you gave to... Who was it again?
Callum Smith.
You gave Callum the first round, yeah.
Yes.
I gave Smith the first round. The second round I gave to Ryder.
I gave it to... I thought I had Callum Smith that second round.
Okay, the third round I gave it to Smith in the first round as well.
Same. Third round Smith.
So you're giving him the first three?
Yes. Oh no, second round I gave it to John Ryder. Apologies.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, John Ryder.
So I gave it to Smith the first round and Ryder the second round. So we agree on that. Third round I gave it to Smith. Who did you give it to?
Smith as well.
Okay, so we had it 2-1 to Smith after 3. Fourth round, I gave it to Smith.
Yes.
Fifth round,
and that's when it was.
Go on, sorry.
That's when it was the head of clash, wasn't it? After the fourth round.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I think so. And then the fifth round, I gave it to Ryder. The sixth round, I gave to Smith. The seventh round, I gave to Smith. And then
from there with John Ryder.
Yeah, I mean Ryder, I gave him the 8th, I gave him the 9th, I gave him the 10th, I gave him the 11th, and
I had him on 12th as well.
Yeah, the 12th I felt was quite a close round, but anyway, I'll quickly run through it. The first round, I mean, John had 2 spells in the round where he did well with a few combinations, but other than that, I felt like Smith probably dominated for most of the round, but neither man really, laid down a marker as such. It was a nothing round, really. But having to score it, I gave it to Smith. I think Andy Lee gave it to Ryder. The second round for me was a Ryder round. I mean, Smith was really showing Ryder that respect. I was happy to see that. Sometimes it can be bad news for Callum Smith's opponents, because when he goes into a fight underestimating his opponent, we don't usually see the best of him. And he looked focused in there, but like I say, he seemed to really respect John Ryder early on. Before Ryder had really done anything at that stage. So I was starting to think, what kind of performance is this from Callum Smith? What are we going to see here? Is he not going to be on his A game? Is he going to be on his A game? And he ended up not being on his A game, or not as good as what we thought he'd be. Most people thought he'd win. Talking of the predictions, yourself, Ayaz, and the listeners both went with a KO for Smith. I went with Smith on points, and obviously I gained the point there. But I said it on last week's show, I thought it'd be a close fight. I felt like Callum would win. But I thought it would be a close fight, I thought it was going to go to the cards, and I thought every round would be a close round. I think I said exactly that on last week's show. Again, in that second round, Ryder was investing in the body early. The third round, Smith was starting to find his range. He was letting his hands go. Not everything was landing, and I was very impressed, actually, with Ryder's elusiveness and his defence as a whole. Smith definitely put his foot on the gas in that round, and for me, he won it. So, like I say, 2-1 to Smith on my card. Andy Lee had it 2-1 Ryder. Again, the scoring was so subjective. The fourth round, a close round where both men had moments. I felt like Smith just nicked it. 3-1 to Smith. Again, that one could have gone either way. The fifth round was a brilliant round. It was the best round of the fight at that point. I think that was where the cut happened, actually. Could be wrong. I think it was the fifth round. Might have been the fourth. For me, though, Ryder did enough, so it was 3-2 for Smith. Sixth round, I gave it to Smith, so I had that... 4-2 to Smith. 7th round, going into the second half, obviously Smith, for me, won the round. Paul Smith himself gave it to Ryder. I noticed that because he said after 7 he gave Ryder, I think it was 2 rounds, but I actually had only given him 1. So perhaps I was being a bit harsh. Ryder definitely had big moments in that 7th round. He was sinking the big hooks into the body of Smith especially. Then in the 8th round, for me it was a close round. It was a good start from Smith, but I felt like Ryder came on strong at the end. I felt like Ryder may have nicked it. So I had it 5-3 to Smith after 8. And, in the second half, that is where, especially in the later rounds of the second half, that was where Ryder started taking over. The 9th round was a Ryder round for me. He was unloading when he got Callum Smith on the ropes. He was making him pay for it. And I was really impressed just by the incredible performance from Ryder. He had pure hunger in his work. The 10th round for me was probably a Ryder round, so I had it 5-5 with 2 to go. In the 11th round, it was a massive round. It was incredible stuff from John Ryder. I expected Callum might be the one to step it up a little bit in those championship rounds, but Ryder was the man who put his foot on the gas. And, Smith was really struggling with the small size of Ryder. He didn't look like the best super middleweight in the world in there. So for me, I had it 6-5 Ryder going into the last round, and Smith even looked stunned in the dying seconds of the 11th. And the 12th round, an unbelievable round, but it was close. I felt like Smith started well, Ryder ended well. Many rounds were close throughout the fight, and many rounds were toss-up rounds. I disagreed with some Ryder rounds that Andy Lee awarded, and I gave them to Smith, and then I gave Ryder some rounds when Andy Lee would give them to Smith. So it was very subjective. Yeah, I think Smith might have just nicked the round though in that 12th. So for me, I had it a draw on my card. But as you can see, the Ryder rounds that I scored, the ones that I scored to Ryder, you couldn't argue with them. They were clear Ryder rounds. But there was a lot of close rounds, and for me, most of the close rounds Callum Smith nicked. So that's why I had it a draw, but I don't feel like he deserved to lose, John Ryder. I'm obviously absolutely gutted for him. He's a good friend of the show. I really, really like John Ryder. He's a real cool, humble, genuine guy. He's an all-round athlete. I've said it before, he is the most improved fighter in boxing. Him and Tevin Farmer both up there in the same bracket. But yeah, I was gutted for John. I was really gutted. He certainly didn't deserve to lose on that, that scorecard that Terry O'Connor handed in. Terry O'Connor gave him 3 rounds. That is absolutely abysmal. But yeah, the rounds were so subjective. They were toss-up rounds. I actually spoke to Craig Richards after the fight, and obviously Craig Richards is a gym mate of John Ryder. They spar all the time. They're real good friends. And I said to him, it's funny, Craig, because I was looking at Andy Lee's scorecard, and every round he seemed to be giving to Ryder, I was giving to Smith, and every round he gave to Smith, I was giving to Ryder. And he said, I 100% agree with you. I almost thought like Andy Lee had his scorecard round the wrong way. So, you know what I mean? It is so crazy, because you'd probably think my scoring was a bit harsh, especially in the early rounds. After 7 rounds, I'd only given Ryder 1. But, even Craig Richards agreed that Smith got the better of the early rounds, and I think he let it go in the second half where John started to take over. But yeah, absolutely gutted for John. Nothing else really I can say. I just hope he gets another shot. The rematch should happen, though I do think that Callum Smith would look at John Ryder and say, well, going into this fight here, he probably thought, well, he got knocked out by Nick Blackwell, he got beat on points by Billy Joe Saunders, he lost to Rocky Fielding, who I banged out in a round. He can say that he prepared as good as what he says, but I just think mentally, if you don't have that fear factor that I didn't think he'd have, then you can let it slip. And Callum Smith, for me, is a guy that fights to his opponent's level. We've seen him look absolutely dreadful when he fights someone of real low opposition. Hasn't really happened lately because he's been stepping it up. But before he became world champion, when he was in those, in those few months or it's about however long they made him wait for a title shot, he didn't look that great in a lot of those fights. He was just kind of unmotivated. His mind wasn't really there. He was winning, of course, but he just didn't look his destructive self. And for me, this was, a step down really in terms of like the Groves fight, The Ndam fight was obviously out in the States. There's probably a bit more excitement there. Ndam being a former world champion a couple times, there's just something there. But with John Ryder, unfortunately, I just don't think he brings that fear factor. I don't think he perhaps took him as serious as a threat as he would have his last few opponents. And that is, in my opinion, why we saw a bit of a lackluster performance from Smith. Again, I had it a draw. I hope John Ryder gets another shot, and I think if the rematch does happen, then Callum Smith is going to take it much more serious, and I think he probably does better in the second fight, because now he knows how good John Ryder is. But yeah, that's it really from me on that one. Moving down that undercard and trying to get through it a little bit quicker. Let's talk about James Tennyson. He was able to TKO in the 11th round Craig Evans. Evans was actually down in the first round. But yeah, a good win there for James Tennyson. That one was a bit of a kind of 50-50 fight on paper. Great fight. Craig Glover, 10-2 going in, now 10-3. He was TKO'd in 5 rounds by Chris Billam-Smith. It was for the vacant Commonwealth Cruiserweight title. Glover was down once in the 4th round and twice in that 5th round. I felt like after the first knockdown in the 5th round, they probably shouldn't have let him carry on. I felt like he took a few punches he didn't need to take. Chris Billam-Smith, I mean, he was just too good for him, I expected him to get Craig Glover out of there around about the early/mid rounds, and he did. For me, Craig Glover was actually saved by the bell in the first knockdown, in the prior rounds. So just a level above, really, Chris Billam-Smith. Lots and lots of promise. I mean, he lost the fight to Riakporhe, but can't remember what happened in that fight, but it was really close or something, wasn't it? So I'd like to see a rematch there or something, or get the other names in. Where's Isaac Chamberlain? I've got no idea where he's disappeared to. The likes, obviously Wadi Camacho's retired now, but there's a few guys there knocking around at cruiserweight. It's a decent division domestically. Obviously you got Luke the Duke Watkins. I want to see these fights. Moving down the card once again, Anthony Fowler was able to win a unanimous decision over 10 against Harry Scarf. Harry Scarf loses his very wide in the end to Fowler. Scarf was down in the 9th round. It was for the vacant WBA International Super Welterweight title. Like I say, quite wide in the end there for Anthony Fowler. Also on the bill, Tom Farrell, 17-2 going in against Sean Masher Dodd, 16-5 with 1 draw going in. Tom Farrell was actually cut on the forehead, I think it was. It was an accidental head clash, and they stopped it and it went to the cards, and Sean Masher Dodd actually got it. So technical decision win there for Masher Dodd. Also on the bill, I should mention Stephen Smith, the brother, of course, of Callum. He picked up a win now, 28-4. It was a points win over 6 against Johnny Phillips, who's now 5-3. Bit of a mismatch there. Moving out now to Germany at the Arena Berlin. We have over here just one fight to mention. Jack Kulkai picked up a win now, 27-4. It was for the WBO International Super Welterweight title against the previously undefeated 16-0 Jama Saidi. Now 16-1, of course. Like I say, unanimous decision over 12 there for Kulkai. It seems like last weekend was a weekend where lots and lots of undefeated records were being taken away. Going out now, though, to the Fantasy Springs Casino in Indio, California, USA. A fight where, it was a big fight. It was a world title fight, but not many people were that interested. Friend of the show, Andrew Cancio, a guy that, of course, retired, went back to his normal job. His kids convinced him to return to boxing, and when he returned, he won a world title. He rematched Rene Alvarado, a guy that he knocked out about 3 years ago. Anyway, it was for Cancio's WBA World Super Featherweight title, and actually, he was retired on his store after 7 rounds. Rene Alvarado turned up, and he really, really, really showed up there. Unbelievable performance, actually. He started battering Cancio around the ring. I mean, Cancio was cut on his left eye in round 3. And, it was all Alvarado. He absolutely dominated the fight. I think he won, every single round. He might have lost perhaps one, but he absolutely dominated. I think since the first fight, both men have moved up in weight. I think they've moved up one weight class and they've really, really improved. But you'd have had to said Cancio got the knockout last time. Cancio's now gone on to become a world champion. So for me, he was a massive favourite. It was almost a no-risk kind of defence for him. But just goes to show how wrong you can be in boxing. Rene Alvarado, the new WBA World Super Featherweight Champion, of course, with a record of 32-8. He'd be looked at with his 8 losses as an easy way to become a world champion, but perhaps not if you actually sit and watch that fight. He was sensational. On that undercard, Can Xu, I think he became something like he's broke some kind of record. I think he's like the guy to throw the most punches in a 12-round fight. I don't think he's done the most punches. I think he's like 4th or 5th in the list. It was well over 1,000 punches. It was a defense of his WBA World Featherweight title against Manny Robles III. Again, he was undefeated. He had his O taken. So many O's being taken. Can Xu now 18-2. Very wide on the cards for him. A shutout on one card. Moving out now to the MGM Grand in Las Vegas, Nevada. The final bill to mention. Let's start with the undercard. Marcellus Wilder, the brother of Deontay, he was KO'd in 4 rounds by Dustin Long. He had a record of 2-1 with 2 draws, and he knocked out Marcellus Wilder with a left hand that didn't even look like a big shot, and Marcellus Wilder was absolutely out of it. He should probably just hang him up. His record's now 5-2. Dustin Long, I think he's like an MMA fighter or something. He's not even a real boxer. He's now 3-1 with 2 draws. On the undercard also, we saw Ledwan Barthélemy. He had his O taken as well. For me, it was an upset. 15-0 with 1 draw going in. He was TKO'd in 4 rounds by Eduardo Ramirez, now 23-2 with 3 draws. Like I say, a good fight, a good performance from Ramirez. The knockdown was nice. And a big upset there, in my opinion. Also on the bill, Leo Santa Cruz, now 37-1 with 1 draw. He becomes the new WBA World Super Featherweight Champion. That makes him a 4-weight world champion. It was quite a wide win, really, against Miguel Flores, friend of the show. I wanted to see him do really well. He was very competitive, though. The cards perhaps don't really tell the full story. He's a tough guy, Flores. He showed up with his heart, as we expected. But unfortunately, it just wasn't enough for him. So 24-3, his record now. He can hopefully come again. Perhaps he can fight. Perhaps he can fight Rene Alvarado. I'd like to see that fight. I doubt he'll get the shot, though. And also on that bill, Brandon Figueroa, friend of the show. Again, he was undefeated. He is still undefeated, but he's got a minor blemish. It ended up being a split draw over 12 rounds against Julio Ceja. Obviously, Ceja, a guy that was beating Rigondo in his last fight till he got knocked out. It was for Figueroa's WBA World Super-Bantamweight title. The belt that he got, he got awarded, really. He was the interim champion, then he got elevated to the full champion. He made his first defence here, and it was a draw. Ceja actually came in, though. I think it was something like 4.5 pounds overweight. I couldn't believe the fight still went ahead. Credit to Brandon Figueroa for doing that, and he's basically said that if Ceja came in on weight, then he'd have won, and I think he's got a strong point there. But credit to Figueroa showing that Figueroa heart. He still wanted the fight, and I think he's a little bit crazy, but we love that about boxers, and he is a true gentleman. I really got a lot of time for Brandon Figueroa, a young guy with an incredibly bright future. But the main event, Ayaz, Deontay Wilder now 42-0. Of course, he's got that one minor blemish, that draw, and it was a KO for him in 7 rounds against the Cuban Luis Ortiz, now 31-2. The second time they've met, the second time it's ended with a knockout win for Wilder in a fight that he's been well behind in the cards, well, on many cards, not everyone's, unbelievably. And like I say, Wilder got a defence there of his WBC World Heavyweight crown. Talk me through it.
It was another Wilder performance. Obviously, we saw Wilder losing the rounds from 1st to 7th, and obviously when the right hand came and knocked him out, knocked Luis Ortiz out. Obviously, we've seen Wilder in all of his fights. He's always behind the cards, but somehow he just gets that huge knockout power and just knocks people out. Obviously, now February 22nd, they said it's the rematch of Tyson Fury. That's the only fight I'm looking forward to. But I mean, it's another Wilder performance. Loses all the rounds, come from behind, and then bam, one right hand, finish, game over.
Yeah, I mean, the first round for me, an Ortiz round, he found one or two backhands, but nothing too serious. Wilder didn't really do anything. He was just pouring with a jab as he does. It was a nothing round, but definitely an Ortiz round. You know, Ortiz seemed to, I think, have a cut as well on his hairline somewhere. The commentary team didn't initially pick it up. They didn't see it. The second round, again, another round you'd have to say Ortiz won. Wilder just wasn't letting the right hand go at all. Again, he was just pouring with a jab, looked a little bit lost in there. Ortiz not really overexerting himself at that point. It was good stuff. Neither man was really burning too much energy. The third round, another good round for Ortiz. He started to let the backhand go a few times to the body of Wilder. I liked that tactic as well. He was completely outboxing the champion after 3. And as most of Wilder's fights start off, to be honest, he doesn't always let that right hand go. And again, we saw that against Fury. I think when he's boxing, a master boxer, he doesn't really want to, overextend. He doesn't want to get countered. So he doesn't let that right hand go. He just waits for his moment. And round 4, another round for Ortiz. Wilder's right hand, he tried to get through with it a couple of times, but they were being blocked. Again, he was easily outboxed by Ortiz. The 5th round, again, Ortiz won the round, though Wilder did land 1 or 2 nice shots. He was being outworked by Ortiz. Then round 6, another round for Ortiz. I was almost starting to think, was Wilder trying to let the old man tire out and come on, perhaps, later in the fight? Is Wilder even capable of following a game plan of that depth? But then in the 7th round, the very next round, boom, the right hand came in and it absolutely knocked the sweat off of Ortiz's head. But yeah, you're right, Ayaz, a typical Wilder performance in which he was being outclassed for every second of the fight, but then he lands that money shot and ends it all right there. We've seen it time and time again. It's a little bit frustrating, I suppose. I mean, I'm not a Wilder hater because I actually think he's all right as a person, but it's just so annoying watching his fights because his I don't care what anyone says. Some people are trying to say this is wrong, what I'm about to say, but his technique is awful. His footwork is awful. His jab, he just pours with it. He loses every single round in most of his fights. Someone was saying it the other day. Is there another world champion in history that's lost that many rounds but is still undefeated? Probably not. He was losing to Spilka. He was losing to Gerald Washington. Obviously Fury. It's happened time and time again. Ortiz in both the fights. He is quite terrible when it comes to boxing IQ. Boxing, just basic boxing basics. He just doesn't have them in his locker, but he's always able to find that shot, so you can't take that away from him. And because of that, he is one of the best heavyweights in the world. For me, he's probably number 2 behind Fury. I think Fury proved when he beat Wilder in the first fight there that that he's the number 1. Obviously, Joshua's lost to Ruiz, so Ruiz deserves a bit of a shout in the top few as well, but obviously he lost to Parker, but that one could have gone either way. So Ruiz is right up there, by the way. But right now, for me, the actual heavyweight rankings from 1 to 4, honestly, if I'm being completely honest, number 1, Fury, number 2, Deontay Wilder, number 3, Ruiz, and number 4, Joshua. That is honestly how I see it. So, hopefully we get to see a little bit more, closure, I suppose, if that's the right word anyway, on February 22nd, should the fight actually go ahead. Not that long to go. And hopefully we see a rightful winner. We don't want to see a draw. We don't want to see any controversy. Hopefully Fury gets the win and then everyone will agree. It will be unanimous that he's the best fighter in the world, at heavyweight. But yeah, just again, on the predictions, we didn't get to see the Neary and the Rodriguez fight. Obviously, Neary came in overweight. Rodriguez didn't agree to the fight going ahead in the end, even if he was given some kind of financial extra or whatever. So, that fight didn't end up happening, so that prediction got struck off. But the other prediction, of course, we all backed Wilder to get the knockout. We all thought he'd do pretty much the same thing, and he did. So 2 points gained for myself, of course, for getting the Smith points prediction right, and of course you and the listeners, Ayaz, both gain a point there with the Wilder KO. But that is it for the review part of the show. Just before we wrap up part 1, the final thing to do is to welcome our very first guest. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the reigning IBF and WBA Super-Bantamweight champion of the world. It is, of course, the baby-faced assassin, Mr. Daniel Roman. Daniel, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you, Joey. I'm I'm happy to be interviewed by you.
Thank you. So, Danny, I want to start with a typical opener, really. How did you get into boxing in the very beginning? What's your earliest memories of putting on the gloves?
Well, it all started, I was back in school. I was 7 years old, and I was playing football. And you know how kids are. And so one thing led to another. I got beat up, came home crying, and at that time my cousin and my brother were boxing. So my dad sent me with my uncle to learn how to box. Told me you got to learn how to defend yourself, and that's it. That's how it all started. I didn't have no idea about boxing until the first day that I started doing it.
And did you ever have like an inspiration? Like, did anyone inspire you to get into boxing? Any boxing figures, back when you were young?
There's a lot of fighters. After I started getting into the sport, I started I got to know more about this sport. I started doing my research. I remember searching on Sugar Ray Leonard, Roberto Duran, especially Julio Cesar Chavez Sr., and all these upcoming fighters, Sugar Shane Mosby. So there's a lot of fighters that motivated me. So you know what? I want to keep on doing this. I'm starting to like this sport.
And did you have much of an amateur career, Daniel?
Yes, I did. I started even my first fight right when I turned 8 years old. I started my amateur career. So I was 17. I did 70 fights. Okay. Just 10 losses out of the 70.
Nice. And of course, you turned pro in 2010, but it wasn't a perfect start to your pro career. I mean, after your first 4 fights, you'd won 2 fights, you'd lost 1 and drew 1. I mean, the draw was a split draw, the loss was a split decision loss. Did you feel hard done by on the scorecards on those occasions, or were you just simply not perhaps good enough back when that happened?
Well, before turning pro, right when I turned 17, I was my goal was to try out for the 2008 Olympics. I think it was Beijing, China. Yep. So that happened. I lost at the Western tryouts, and I didn't want nothing to do with boxing. So I left like a year passed by. Not even interested, but I had that fire in me. The love for the sport. So little by little, I started getting back to the gym, and after that, you know what, I'm gonna try this professional thing, because I never thought about being a professional. My goal was just to be an Olympic medalist, and from there on, I would have seen where it led me to. But my first fight, it only lasted, I believe, 45 seconds. I knocked the guy out with a liver shot, and the second fight. Well, it was you could say my welcome to the professionals. It was a tough fight. It was a close fight, and it became a draw. And my first loss, it was another tough fight. It could have gone either way, but I got beat.
And, because you are, when you look back at that, the start you had was a bit of a rocky start there. And then to see that and then to see what you're achieving now, it's just unbelievable. I love speaking to people like yourself, like your Tevin Farmers, people like that didn't have the best starts and then have gone on, It's brilliant hearing people and how they've improved, not just their boxing, but, their whole life. And, I'm guessing you must have been able to spar some biggish names over the years. Who are some of the big names you've perhaps mixed it with?
Oh man, I gotta start making memory. Well, one of the biggest names now, I sparred Leo Santa Cruz. Oh wow! He just fought over the weekend. Yep. I sparred Abner Mares. You're making me go way back.
No, that's okay. That's 2 big names.
Some upcoming prospects. Aron Alameda, Mexican fighter. What's his name? Jesse Magdaleno. I sparred him. Wow, man, I sparred. You know what? They don't go up to my mind. But yeah, I've been in the ring sparring with some pretty famous guys.
Now that's some great names there. And fast forwarding, obviously, you got your shot in the end against Shun Kubo. You had to travel to Japan for it. Now he was undefeated at the time. You were able to stop the champion in the 9th round. I watched it back today. I mean, you were completely all over him, especially in coming up to that 8th and 9th round, stuff like that. The pressure you put on was incredible. Just talk me through that fight from your point of view, because like I say, you really dominated the undefeated champion and you completely silenced the crowd.
Yes, well, Japan is is really different culture. I mean, usually in the fights you hear a lot of people screaming. They're like, at some point they were like quiet, just looking at the fights. But they're good people. They treated me good. Got a lot of love and respect for them. The fight, I remember after I beat Adam Lopez for the title eliminator. At that time, Cermeño was champion, and he was gonna fight Shun Kubo. That's how Shun Kubo became the world champion, because he beat Cermeño. So like we were wondering, oh man, it gotta happen this year. It gotta happen this year. We started getting ready. We started preparing like we always do for the best. And Shun Kubo, we knew he was a tall guy, lefty, and so we had to take the fight to him. And I couldn't let him use his distance, because every time he used his distance, he was connecting me. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna be on top of him, try to break him down, and that's how we're gonna beat him. And thank God everything went great. The plan went great, and we dropped him, I believe, in the 8th or 7th round.
Yeah.
And after that we started picking up the pace. And once we saw that he was hurt, I was like, you know what, it could be any moment. This is my dream. This is what I've been fighting all my life for. So I got to take advantage of it, and thank God that's what I did, and everything went great, and I became a champion that night.
And just describe to me what that felt like, what that felt like. Perhaps the minute the referee waved it off, you knew, but just hearing, obviously, the announcement, the new champion of the world, what went through you at that moment there?
Oh, Joey, man, it is, you can't explain it, because it's really, really emotional, like you remember all you've been through. I remember the 2 losses that I had early in my career. I was like, you know what? I'm a world champion tonight. I'm a world champion today. And, I mean, anything's possible. Anything's possible if you set your mind to it and you put in the work for it. And, but, yeah, I couldn't hold my emotions. I was crying right there. Everything I've been through. Everything came through, and it was that joy. It was that joy, like I can't explain it. Can't explain the joy. But yeah, it was the best feeling.
Sometimes I like to just ask that question to a few guys that have won world titles, and I sit here smiling while they try to explain to a normal person like me what it's like to win a world title. But of course, you then defended against Matsumoto. You then took the O from Moises Flores, and then of course you beat Britain's very own Gavin McDonnell. What was that Gavin McDonnell fight like now, looking back? I mean, I'm not going to lie, I was sitting here cheering for McDonnell, but you fought brilliantly that night, and of course, was the rightful winner.
I mean, another tall fighter, Gavin McDonnell, great boxing. I knew he was boxing. He wasn't staying there to exchange with me. He kept on moving around. He was doing a smart fight. So like, I was like, you know what, I gotta keep on pressuring him, because I know he's not an easy fighter, but I gotta do my best. I even that was my first fight under Matchroom. It was my first fight under Matchroom, and I know he came in the best shape because he looked fit. Gavin looks fit. And first started, I started connecting him to the body. He was so tall, so I started like, you know what, I'll start breaking this guy down. Started through combinations, and eventually I saw that he wasn't moving as much later in the round, so I was like, oh, you know what, I'm starting to get him more, starting to connect more, and it happened, I believe, in the 10th round, right? Yeah, it was in the 10th round, right?
Yeah. Sorry, yeah.
Did we stop him?
Yeah. No, brilliant fight that, like I say. Brilliant fight. And, obviously Gavin, boxed really well as well up to that point. Most recently, of course, the big one back in April, unification against the IBF World Champion TJ Doheny, in which you were able to dethrone him and become a unified champion by dropping him twice and, of course, grabbing a majority decision win. We've seen so many brilliant fights this year, like Spence Porter, Prograis Taylor, Inoue Donaire, Joshua Ruiz, and they're all being spoken about as potential fight of the year contenders, but because your fight happened back in April, I feel like a lot of people are almost forgetting it, because in my opinion it certainly does deserve a mention as one of the best fights of 2019.
Oh, of course, I even thought me and TJ took that night, the fight of the night. TJ, man, tough guy, man. TJ, I got a lot of respect for him. He did the same thing as I did. He went over to Japan, won the world title, and he's a strong kid, strong guy. He gave a good fight. He even connected me in the 7th round. But yeah, he was a great guy, a great fighter, and I think he should be spoken as one of the fights of the year, at least, because we gave it all that night.
Yeah, you certainly both did. And how are you feeling now, obviously, as the unified champion at 122? Because people can say whoever they want to say is the best fighter at 122. Some people might not think you're the number one. But one thing that no one can deny is that you've got the real estate. You've got the two major, the two of the major 4 titles. That puts you in a special position. No one can deny that at all.
Yes. I'm not the one the type of guy that talks a lot, I'd rather talk in the ring, but yeah, like having 2 world titles should mean something, should say something. That, like, I believe I'm the best at 122 Super-Bantamweight. I think I'm the best at that division, and I'm still gonna prove it. There's this fight coming up with this Uzbekistan kid, Murodjan, and hopefully everything goes well in this fight, and we'll be going for the rest of the world titles, challenging the best in the division.
And you named your opponent there. When is that fight set for, if you can tell us at this stage?
Well, I believe it'll be by the end of next year, or the January, the beginning of next year, and by the end of January. And
is that a mandatory?
Yes, for the WBA.
Okay. So, again, you mentioned there your plan is quite simple to defend against your mandatory. Then you look to make the big fights in the division. Obviously, the 2 other champions, Navarrete and Ray Vargas. What do you think of those guys as champions? I mean, Ray Vargas, obviously, another guy we've seen in there with Gavin McDonnell, a real good boxer. It seems massive for the weight. And then Navarrete, perhaps even bigger for the weight, huge at the weight. I mean, he looked massive against Dogbay. Those 2 guys are huge, Danny. What do you think of those 2 champions there?
I fought taller guys than me. Even one of the latest ones, it was Gavin. Yeah, Gavin, Moises Flores, Ryo Matsumoto. They're pretty tall guys. You just got to make the adjustment, the right preparation for those type of guys. But yeah, they're like Ray Vargas. He's proven that he's a great champion. He got 4 or 5 defense on the WBC, And Navarrete, I believe he got 3, going on 4, I believe. So they proven themselves, and I called out both of them, and Ray Vargas has called me as well. So, hopefully it could happen by this coming year.
Yeah, we certainly hope
2020.
So. We certainly hope so. And just coming down to the last couple of questions, really, Danny. I'm asking everyone this one. Joshua versus Ruiz, the rematch, putting you on the spot a little bit, obviously on DAZN. How do you see it unfolding? Is it repeat? Will Ruiz win again, or will Joshua get his revenge and win this one?
You know what? To be honest, at that weight, heavyweight, anything can happen. It's a 50-50. I mean, both of the guys got the power to finish the fight with one punch. And I'm actually pretty interested on this fight. I know what happened on the first fight. It was a pretty good fight. His name Ruiz got dropped. Then he came back strong and finished off Joshua. He could happen on this fight as well. But like I said, it's a 50-50. Anything can happen at that weight. Both of them got the power to change the fight with one punch. Let the best man win. And for me, I just want to see a great fight.
Okay. I'll let you sit on the fence. And just the final real question, Danny. I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit once again. I like to ask this question to all of our, the people that I interview from all over the world. Who comes to mind when I ask you who is your favourite UK fighter? It can be from any era. It can be a guy still fighting today. It can be a guy who retired many years ago. Who comes to mind?
I want to say Ricky Hatton.
Okay. Yeah, very popular answer. What did you like about Ricky?
Yeah. Man, he reminds me of Durant. He had that aggressive style, coming forward, doing everything. Just a tough guy, man.
Yeah, like I say, very popular answer. A lot of people love the Hitman.
Yeah.
And just finally, Danny, again, you've signed with Eddie, or you're fighting on DAZN. We're getting to see you over here on Sky Sports. A lot of the UK support for you has, I'm sure, really increased because of all of this. What's your message to your UK supporters that support you over here? If you've got a final message for them that support you this side of the pond.
Oh yes, of course. I'm happy. I'm happy. I got a good fan base in UK, and thank you all for your support. Thank you for that love, and coming this 2020, expect good things from me. Sorry from the little setbacks, the little injuries, but it's boxing, It happens, but unfortunately, it happened to me. But we'll be strong upcoming 2020, and thank you again for that love and respect you guys have given me, and I will continue giving the best of me and giving great fights.
Absolutely. Listen, Danny, it has been a total pleasure interviewing you this week, sir. Thank you so much for your time. Best of luck with the upcoming fight. Have a great Christmas, and I'm sure that we'll catch up sometime in the new year.
Yes, thank you, Joy, and happy holidays, and take care.
Okay, now it's time for part 2 on this week's show. Usually, of course, we do the news, but there isn't really anything big enough to mention as it stands. But if that changes by the end of the show, I will discuss it at the very end. But as it stands, nothing really worth mentioning. So let's dive straight into the preview part. We're going to start here at the Casino di Monte Carlo in, of course, Monaco, the Eddie Hearn annual Monte Carlo showdown. Over here we have Hughie Fury, 23-3. He's in a 10-rounder against Pavel Soor, who's got a record of 11-2. The losses came to Jermaine Franklin in his very last fight, which unbelievably happened a month ago. He went the distance and got almost shut out over 10 rounds literally a month ago. That is quite shocking. In October, he lost. He was down as well twice in the fight, and he's back the month after against Hughie Fury. Doesn't make any sense whatsoever. He also got knocked out by Filip Hrgovic in 1 round. Also on the bill, Zalil Zhang, the Chinese heavyweight, the silver medalist in the Olympics, 6'6" southpaw. Real stop-start career it's been for him. He needs to really get going. I think he's quite up there in age as well, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, he is 20-0 with 16 KOs. He was supposed to be fighting the guy that Michael Hunter beat, Sergei Kuzmin. He was supposed to be fighting him, but for whatever reason, Kuzmin's not fighting him, and in steps Andrei Rudenko, former opponent of Hughie Fury. That one's for the WBO Oriental heavyweight title. Rudenko, 32-4. Again, he's coming off a loss as well to Ajit Kabayel. Oh boy. He's only had one fight per year, actually, for the last 3 years, Rudenko. So yeah, not good. Really not good. So 2 home fighters there, both fighting guys coming off losses. Also on the bill, Cecilia Brackhouse, arguably the pound-for-pound number 1 of women's boxing, 35-0. She puts her WBC, WBA, IBF, WBO and IBO World female welterweight titles on the line against the very game Victoria Bustos, 19-5. Bustos, she's tough. She's never been stopped, but she's not a big puncher. She's never knocked anyone out, which is kind of crazy. She went the distance with Katie Taylor, got beat very wide. That one was down at 135, and she's stepped right up here to 147. It makes no real sense to me, but I'm guessing Brackhouse is going to be too big. She's going to probably look good over 10 2-minute rounds there. Also on the bill, Alexander Besputin, 13-0, fights for the vacant WBA World welterweight title against Rakab Butayev, who has a record of 12-0, 9 KOs. Butayev, I think, was a decent amateur, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, having a look at it now, actually. 400 amateur fights, 392 wins, 164 KOs. That's incredible. So, boy, oh boy, I'd like to see the odds on that one. And obviously, Alexander Besputin, another good fighter, another guy with, a real extensive amateur career and stuff like that. Did he go to the Olympics? I can't remember now, but he was a good amateur. I remember that. So two good amateurs getting it on in the pros, 13-0 against 11-0, both men with 9 KOs. And also on that bill, almost forgot there, Joe Cordina, the Welsh wizard. He fights for the vacant WBA Continental Super Featherweight title against Mario Enrique Tenoco. You may know him because earlier this year, it was back in May, he was able to stop and take the O of Jordan Gill. Yes, it is him. Obviously, he's got the loss to Devin Haney. He's got a loss down there to Mario Barrios and a couple of others. But, he showed us against Jordan Gill, who I think had the flu and stuff like that. He showed us that he's not a bad fighter. He's a tough guy, and he can punch as well. So this should be a stern test there for Joe Cordina. Moving out now to Spain at the Pabellón de la Vall de Hebron or something there in Barcelona, Catalunya. Over here we get to see Kerman Leharaga return to the ring, 28-2. Of course, the 2 losses to the same man, David Avanesian. He takes on Anderson Clayton, 41-14 with 2 draws over 8 rounds. Leharaga will absolutely destroy him, in my opinion. Moving out now to York Hall. Again, this one takes place this Saturday also. Over here, quite a few good fights, actually. I'm going to just go through these real quick. This one for the vacant English Super Featherweight title. 9-0 undefeated Liam Dillon takes on Yusuf Kamari over 10 rounds. Kamari 10-0. Shout out to Kamari, by the way. I think trained by Xavier out of that. I think they're still operating out of that Don Charles gym. Good guy, Xavier. Also on the bill, Echo Esserman, 12-0. He takes on Curtis Felix Jr., 10-0. That one for the English welterweight title. Linus Udofia, 14-0. Fights for the vacant English middleweight title against Tyler Denny, 12-1 with 2 draws. Who else is on that bill? Mo Garib, 5-1. He takes on Lee Devine over 4 rounds. That's about it really for that one. Moving out now to the Oasis Leisure Centre in Swindon, Wiltshire, United Kingdom. Friend of the show, Luke the Duke Watkins, 14-2. He takes on Eric Nazarian, who's 27-23 with 4 draws. That's an 8-rounder there. let's just go to the big Frank Warren card. Brilliant bill this, by the way. I think it starts. Don't take this for gospel, but check it out. I think it starts at 6 p.m. on the telecast, so it's a very early start on Saturday. Let's start with the undercard, shall we? Dennis McCann, obviously the Cam man, the Menace, I think they call him Dennis the Menace. 4-0, very, very good fighter. Huge future, you'd say. He's in a 6-rounder, no opponent just yet. Shabazz Massoud, 6-0. He's in a 6-rounder against Stefan Nikolai, 3-19 with a draw. Hamza Shiraz, 9-0. He fights for the vacant WBO European Super Welterweight title. No opponent just yet there, over 10. Also on the bill, Sammy Maxwell, 12-0. He's in a good fight, actually. It's for the WBO European Super Lightweight title. He takes on another undefeated guy, Connor Parker, 12-0 as well. That could be interesting, you know. He's a southpaw, 5'9", Connor Parker. Again, it seems like lots and lots of undefeated guys last weekend and this weekend are all getting it on, you know. Someone is going to lose their O. It seems like O's are going in the month of November. Lerone Richards, 12-0, takes on another one here. Takes on Lennox Clark, 19-0 with a draw. That one's for the vacant British super middleweight title. That's a cracking fight, by the way. Lennox Clark, a guy who, if I'm not mistaken, I think has he been a touch inactive or something? Because I haven't seen him really since the fight with Jermaine Smile, I think it was. I think he beat Jermaine Smile. And, you know, it was a good fight. I think I may have even been there for that one. And, you know, since then it seems like he hasn't pushed on. And I was actually quite surprised to see he's still undefeated. Obviously, Lerone Richards, a guy who's been plagued also with inactivity. You know, he's coming off that brilliant win earlier this year against Tommy Langford. That one will be really interesting. What else do we have? Chris Jenkins, 22-3 with 2 draws, takes on Liam Taylor, 21-1. Again, Chris Jenkins seems like he's just, you know, he's had a couple of ups and downs, obviously, you know, but that fight against Johnny Garton, I thought Garton would be able to walk through him, and he boxed absolutely brilliantly, became British champion, defended it against Paddy Gallagher, and here he is against Liam Taylor, who can fight himself, you know. Liam Taylor hasn't lost for about four and a bit years, maybe even 5 years now. I think it was to Tyrone Nurse back in the day on an under. Was it on an under? It was on an undercard of something. It was on an undercard or something. That might have been a Josh Warrington undercard up in Leeds. But yeah, you know, very good fight, that one. Sam Bowen, again, this is another guy willing to risk his O. 15-0. He puts his British super featherweight title on the line against Anthony Kakachi, 17-1. A lot of people are telling me that Kakachi will win that fight, so that one could be very interesting. Again, Kakachi with that one loss to Martin J. Ward. You know, again, he's been a little bit inactive. Only the one fight in the last almost 2 years, you know, so he's coming off real inactivity there, but that one could be interesting. And then, of course, topping the bill for the WBO World Bantamweight title, Zolani Tete, 28-3. He takes on John Real Casemiro, 28-4. Obviously, Casemiro, the last time he stepped foot in the UK was when he took the O and stopped Charlie Edwards in that 10th round on the Brook Golovkin undercard back in, was it 2015 or 2016 that was? So yeah, tremendous fighter. It's great to have him back in this country. That's it for that card, though. Again, I think it starts at 6 on Saturday there. This one takes place in the States at the Cosmopolitan of Las Vegas, Nevada, USA. Over here, we get to see Arnold Barboza Jr., 22-0. He takes on William Silva, 27-2, over 10 rounds there for the NABF Junior Super Lightweight title. And Oscar Valdez, 26-0. He makes his debut at 130 pounds, the super featherweight division. Obviously, he vacated his WBO featherweight title. Shakur Stevenson's picked it up. He's in a 10-rounder against Andres Gutierrez, 38-2 with 1 draw. Am I mistaking Andres Gutierrez for someone else? Was he a guy, Ayaz, who was supposed to box Carl Frampton?
Yes, that's correct. But then, wasn't it something he slipped in a bathroom?
Was that him? Yeah, you're right.
Yes,
yeah.
That was him. And then the fight got cancelled.
What a weird one. So, yeah, he's been plagued, hasn't he, Carl Frampton? I mean, we're only a few days away from the fight. I mean, touch wood, and I am actually I am actually touching wood, the desk right in front of me, because I don't want anything to happen last minute that'll put the fight off. You know, it seems like on fight week, it's like the worst time for Carl Frampton. You know, he's had the statue fall on his hand. He's had the, the guy slipping in the bath. But that guy, like I say, is back against Oscar Valdez, even though Frampton's on the bill himself. But yeah, Gutierrez, I mean, I remember when Frampton was supposed to fight him, it wasn't really a fight I was interested in, to be honest. And again, I'm not really interested in it for Vargas. I mean, he's obviously stepping up in weight. You know, it's probably going to be a bit of a war. Both obviously Mexican fighters. Both men have got a dig on them. And Gutierrez is a tough guy. You know, he's got the 2 losses, never been stopped though. So yeah, for me, That could be interesting. I don't even think he's been down, actually, Gutierrez. So that could be, when I say interesting, I think Valdez wins, but I think that could be a bit of a war, which Valdez seems to love. He loves to tear up. Also on the bill, Carlos Adames, 18-0. He's in a 12-rounder against Patrick Teixeira, who is 30-1. That one's over 12. And then, like I said, Carl Frampton to finish it up, 26-2 in a 10-rounder against Tyler McCreary. Again, this guy has an undefeated record, 16-0 with 1 draw. I've been told he's not a bad fighter, McCreary, but I've got to be honest, I've not seen anything of him. I mean, it's not a fight I want to see for Carl Frampton, I've got to be honest. I want to see him in those bigger fights. It's not a fight that I am overly looking forward to, and you know, this guy McCreary is like the guy he was going to fight in Philadelphia. Someone I didn't really want to see him in with. He's like the guy, you know, Gutierrez. I didn't really want to see him in with those guys. I want to see him in the bigger fights. I'm not quite sure what's going on because he's been talking a lot about Jamel Herring for some kind of St. Patrick's Day showdown. But yeah, Tyler McCreary, again, you know, the height could be interesting. I think he was a decent amateur. I think he won a couple national titles, stuff like that. But yeah, as a pro, hasn't really done anything amazing. I mean, obviously he's still undefeated, but a lot of his opponents had losing records and stuff like that, you know. So yeah, not going to be able to pose a threat to Carl Frampton, in my honest opinion. And the worst thing is that draw on his record. You look at that. I mean, he drew with Roberto Castaneda earlier this year, and that's just I don't know, it's hard to overlook, really. Castaneda's been beaten very well by many fighters, you know, and yeah, that doesn't look good on his slate there. But anyways, that's everything for the preview part of the show, which now brings us to the end. I've been your host, Joey Coastman. Ayaz Sumra has been Ayaz Sumra. A massive thank you to our one guest on this week's show, the reigning IBF and WBA Super-Bantamweight champion of the world, Danny Roman. The reason we only had one guest on the show is because one other boxer who I shall not name totally messed me around. I mean, we scheduled an interview for 2 a.m. UK time, and by 7 a.m. UK time, when my eyes were trying to close on me, I was getting nothing back from him or his team. So I'm deeply sorry that we couldn't deliver 2 guests on this week's show. You know, I really take the podcast deadly seriously, and I feel like we've under-delivered quite badly. So just want to say, if you've stuck with me for the duration of this week's show, then I salute you and I thank you for listening. One piece of news that has broken while we've been recording the show is that Dillian Whyte will box on the Joshua undercard in Saudi Arabia on December 7th against Mariusz Wach. The prediction league currently stands at myself in the lead on 23 points. You, the listeners, are in second place with 17 points, and Ayaz is at the back in third with 16 points. Once again, thank you all for listening, and we hope to see you all again next week.